People do business with people they like.
That's a lesson for any business, is to think about the people first.
We don't want our salespeople to have to work hard for the very first pair.
There's a time and a phase where you have to have a lot of balls in the air. There's also an important time and a phase where you have to concentrate on what you've done and make it work.
It's so imperative to get that footwear on your team.
We challenge a lot of our leadership and a lot of our middle management to be the ones that film some of these videos because...
Welcome to the Comfort Walk and Talk, where every step towards comfort is a step towards a healthier you.
We're your hosts,
Jeff,
Allanah,
and Ben.
Together, let's transform our lives from the ground up. Welcome everyone to our next episode of Comfort Walk and Talk by the Comfort Co. It's a really great privilege today to have some special guests actually from the USA, and so I'll introduce those. But before I introduce those, I've got Dan here from our company who's running our retail business, the Comfort Co Retail, which we have really begun in earnest in the last 12 months. But special guests from the US today are Adam and Julia from Beck Shoes. It's a wonderful story and there's so many similarities between our business. I'm really looking forward to getting into the discussion and understanding a lot about their story. It's an amazing story. And before I get into introducing a little bit more in detail of Beck Shoes, we've got Liam Burke from the USA, Liam is actually running the Comfort Co business in the USA, which is Revolves shoes and some other brands that we're introducing in the next 6 months. So it's going to be a great conversation. There's a lot of expertise in the room here. We're really focused. The objective of this show is really to explain a little bit more about comfort shoes and the retailing aspect of it to consumers, and also highlight some of the successes that we're having in terms of the marketplace. Without further ado, welcome Adam and Julia to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah, we're really excited to talk about this.
No, we're so excited. In fact, I was in Atlanta last week at the Atlanta Shoe Fair, and I met Adam and Julia for the first time. They've been customers of one of our brands, Revere, for many years now, but I met them for the first time actually at the bar at the hotel, and they were telling me a little bit about that they had they were doing some podcasts, and I thought, wow. Let's have a podcast. So within a week we put this together, and I'm so excited about the opportunity. So let's start. At Beck Shoes, for our Australian audience, 100 years old, 5 generations, which is very interesting to me. I really want to understand that, because a business that's had 5 generations involved in the business is an amazing business in today's world. 22 retail stores, and really founded by a cobbler from Denmark who brought some of that expertise into the business. So I guess my first question to open up the discussion, and guys, introduce yourselves by all means as we get into it, but what has been the essence, the core of Beck Shoes, and what's kept together a family business over 5 generations for 100 years? That's a pretty important and exciting question.
Unreal.
Yeah, so Julie and I are 5th generation. And we actually went to Denmark to follow our roots, and we traced back cobblery, being cobblers back to like the mid 1700s in Ribe, Denmark. So we got to go out there a couple of years ago. Currently operate 26 stores. I jokingly say 25 too many. But yeah, 26 stores over 6 states. We also have 4 shoe mobiles, which is a unique conversation all by itself. But yeah, the essence of what keeps us continuing down the path, we've always had the mentality. Julia's dad, my uncle, my father, Julia's uncle, they were together for a quarter century. So they had, again, 25 plus years of working together. And of course, Grandpa was, he separated from his brothers in the mid 50s. And so, he broke off from that partnership. And it's a long family history, 105 years. Dates back to 1919, the very first store in Salinas, California, which is coastal, near Carmel, if you know where Carmel, California is. But that's kind of where it dates back. But
I think essence-wise, legacy is a huge word, a lot of pride, I would say. We grew up where the family business was definitely kind of the center of a lot of things growing up for both of us. There was 10 grandkids on our grandpa's our grandfather and his three sons. And of the 10 of them, Adam and I were the two that kind of stuck around for the longest period of time. Some came and went as far as our siblings go. But our dads really brought us in. And I think my grandfather did this very much with his sons as well, brought them into the back end of the business, opened the books, put the hood up, if you will, and really invited them in. And our dads did the same for us.
Yeah,
They raised us.
we were looking at P&Ls and balance sheets in our teens,
Yeah.
and talking about expenses and going over each line item on a monthly basis. And so I know a lot of owner operators, they might not do that on a monthly basis. Maybe it's quarterly or even some of them annually. But looking at the numbers, we have something called the four-pronged approach, and it's simply put with all of our goal setting. Where were we? Past tense. Where are we? Which is current day. Where do we want to be in the future? And then lastly, that fourth prong is the plan of how we plan to get there. So everything that we do is we have that four-pronged approach instilled in our team leaders and all of our middle and executive management teams. So it's really about knowing where your numbers are, knowing where you are at all times, having those benchmarks. But on the flip side, it's the analysis paralysis part of it. Is you don't want too many meetings. You don't want to be gathering all the time and talking about the business. There has to be a level of action that's implemented. So we try to balance each other out, and Dre and I are definitely the yin and the yang when it comes to operating and managing our business here in the States. But the four-pronged approach and really just knowing where you are at all.
With so many stores across multiple states, what level of importance do you put on giving your managers, your team at all levels, the autonomy to make decisions, quickly? Is it, look, don't come to us as long as you're within the four prongs, we're good, or do you have more sort of check-in protocols?
I would say for us, guardrails are incredibly important. So making sure that, within those guardrails, you have the authority to make the decisions that are right for the store in the moment. And in all the departments, not just the retail stores, but we want people to problem solve. We want people to find solutions. We have a very, very solutions-driven mindset from the top down. So helping people to recognize that they can solve their own problems as long as they're within those guardrails, that is key, I would say. Because to your point, we're so spread out and there's only so many hours in every day, and our middle management and executive team, they can only take so many phone calls and make so many decisions. It's the whole concept of, you can teach someone to fish, or you can give them fish, or whatever. I forget what the saying is, but we want to teach people to fish. We want them to feed themselves. We want them to, operate as if they are part of this team and they know exactly what the initiatives are. They know what the goals are, and they can then, go and reach those.
And Liam giving the autonomy to make that decision in the moment. With all the disruption in the marketplace, and there's so many different ways to purchase footwear this day and age, more so than ever before. So, rolling out that red carpet, giving that amazing verbal tour to all of our consumers that walk into our doors. And if they encounter a challenge or an issue, making them truly feel empowered to make those decisions in the moment. And we're encouraging mistakes to be made. Yeah. Obviously, making a mistake one time, we don't look at that as a bad thing. We look at that as a teachable moment. That's an opportunity where we can learn and we can improve. And, again, let's get better together is kind of that mantra that we have. If that same mistake happens 2, 3, 4 times in a row, then obviously it becomes more of less of a teachable moment and more of, okay, let's
maybe a critical.
What's identifying? Yeah. Is it a process issue? Is it a person issue, and that kind of thing? So, but I guess with that mindset too, I guess if a problem gets to your level, it's going to be a really hard one to solve. Then if you've got
Exactly. Yes. You're hoping that these things will weed themselves out, and kind of like the solutions will come to be before they actually have to get to our level.
Well, again, it's like keeping your fingers on the pulse. So traveling the stores. Julie is in the stores 2 days a week. I'm out there traveling the stores with our middle management. We call them, that's a brick and mortar stores. We call them the road dogs. That's our group of middle management for retail. So it's like a district manager. And so traveling with the road dogs, keeping your fingers on the pulse, knowing what's happening in your retail stores, and again, being stretched out over 6 states with 26 stores, you're in all these different markets. And so, that creates more challenges too, of just being conscious and being aware of the stores that you're in and the consumer base that you're attempting to service.
And there's such remarkable nuances, I suppose, even across states here in the US, probably less so than there's in Australia. So it's, you've got a number of different, even within states, you've got a number of.
I was going to say, even, the state of California is quite large. So, you talk about Northern California compared to, Capitola, which is in Santa Cruz, and it's a beach town. So very different vibes in a lot of the stores. But obviously we want to have that consistent consumer experience and make sure that every single one of those consumers knows exactly where they are and knows exactly what they can expect as far as that experience goes.
We're constantly reevaluating the teams within each store, and we do a lot of reloads. So we do reloads where we have someone that's relocating 3 hours south to where, we're going to pay for her relocation, but she's going to be a great fit in that market. And so constantly looking at, that mix of team members within each store. And then again, actively having that discussion constantly about, creating these amazing, we were talking about Nordstrom. Yeah, we were talking about Nordstrom's today, about the pace setters that each one of their Nordstrom stores had. And Nordstrom's, they wrote an amazing book, and it's, we live and die by that kind of stuff. You got to have the great teams.
Absolutely. And what a great way to help drive them as well, to help grow in their careers, right?
Well, and we have 5 core values, and growth is our first one. So as much as we can create opportunity, and especially in an area where we live, there kind of feels like it's just a tough place to live sometimes from a monetary perspective. So if we can come alongside someone and create a space for them to better their life and maybe, relocate somewhere a little more desirable, it's a pleasure to do so. It feels really good.
So just before, just to carry on that, just to come back a little bit, because I can see the passion in you guys. And I really want to just understand, you guys are 5th generation. I know how hard it is to motivate my children. They're 2nd generation, right? And so I look at what's really been the driving force for you, Adam, and you, Julia, in sort of keeping on the Beck's train rather than maybe going and looking at something different?
Well, I've never had another job. I started working. A long story short, I have 2 younger sisters. And so essentially, being an older brother with 2 younger sisters, I grew up in a mountain town. My closest friend was a 15-minute bike ride away. So my mom at one point told my dad, you need to get Adam away from the sisters during summer vacations. I cannot handle this. And so that's where I got my start in the shoe industry. So my dad would take me to work, and back then child labor laws were non-existent. Yeah. So, I got on this cheap. Well, I got $2 an hour, and I would work 10, 12-hour days with my dad, and a lot of commute time, and built a great relationship with my father. But that's where I got the start, and I literally being 10 or 11 years old, going in there, running the stock work, cleaning the bathrooms. At that time, our customer history was a 3x5 index card prior to having our POS computer system. So, no one wanted to alphabetize these cards. And so then going in, I see my dad talking to the managers, and they're having these great conversations and laughing. Meanwhile, I'm cleaning the bathrooms, doing the stock work, filing the cards. And then my dad's like, okay, time to go to the next store. And so that's where I got my start. And the story goes on and on. I don't want to take too much time on that. But I never went to college, no formal education, schooled off hard knocks. I've had a lot of great mentors, Tom Luck, Lucky Shoes in Ohio, Morris Granton, another huge mentor of mine. So I've been blessed. And of course, my grandfather, our grandfather, and, our dads. So, that's.
I think just for me, similar to Adam, I was in the office at a very young age. I would come work summers with my dad. I would actually sit in my dad's office, and those cards that he was filing in the stores, I then got to input them into our system when we got a computer system. That was one of my first jobs. I saw the way that my dad interacted with his team. And, I've been thinking about this a lot because we do something with all of our new hires. We do a Beck's Family Welcome. So after someone's gone through their training, Adam and I invite them into our corporate office as much as we can. Sometimes it's a video call, and we kind of tell them about our start in the business and tell them why we're here and tell them, our journey and whatnot. So I think about it a lot because I've recycled and repeated the story so many times. But getting to see my dad interact and be a significant part of some of these team members' lives and see the way that he was able to come alongside them in their life, I thought that was the coolest thing. And to be in a position of opportunity of, I don't want to use the word power, but to be in a position to be able to do that for people felt incredible to me. And I think that long term, I wanted to be in a position of impact. So being a part of a family business felt like that was that opportunity. And it's also again, the family pride, like being part of the next generation and being able to carry on the stuff. You could see in Grandpa's face, like how much he loved this place and how much passion he had for it. And same with our dads. I mean, the amount of energy and effort and their lives that they gave to this place. I mean, my dad still works for us. He does our payroll for us. So he's still here grinding away. But yeah, I think that that's really what my motivating factor was, is just seeing what I could do with this opportunity.
I think, Bo, again, Dan's got a couple of questions to follow up, I'm sure, but I think you say something very important, is a lot of the next generation doesn't understand the opportunity they have. And because there's incredible opportunity in your own, in what your background is. And I think that's something that I'm seeing. I've spoke to another chap in Atlanta, and it was the same question. He suddenly realized what he had in front of us, and he was looking for something outside that, and it was all he'd been with it for years, and he suddenly realized the opportunity. So it's a very true point. The other point I'll pick up from Adam is the use of mentors outside your direct family. Obviously, sometimes you don't really want to listen to dad, or so it's good to have mentors, external mentors involved as well. I think that's a good point.
I think independent footwear here is really a community, and I think, I was going to touch on that point with Adam as well, like the fact that, you've got, there's kind of, within the independent footwear channel here in the US, like everyone wants to see everyone succeed, and there's not a lot of competition, and then they'll help you when they can. So, is that a correct?
I would say I always use the analogy of, I love football, American football, so I always use the analogy. If you were given Bill Belichick's playbook, right, the head coach for the Patriots, he had a very illustrious career with Tom Brady and supporting cast members on that team. But just because you have the playbook and you have all the plays and you have Bill Belichick's playbook doesn't mean you're going to win Super Bowls. And so we've always had that mindset of just being very open, very transparent with helping and sharing best practices, and just, this is what we're doing, this is what's working for us. Even if we do have a little crossover with competition with some of our friends in the industry, we truly have this relationship. And we actually at Atlanta, we were able to get together with a large group of us, and there was 7 owners present for that, and it represented over 800 doors within the country. So, there were a lot of amazing minds all in one room. We had, throughout the whole course of a day, just such great camaraderie and conversation, and there were smiles on everyone's faces, and we're experiencing a lot of the same pain points. There's a lot of the same challenges, regardless of what markets, regardless of what states, even if you're doing business outside of the United States. I mean, again, we're talking about people, we're talking about this consumer experience, and I mean, it's so important to give this SCOTUS and create this experience. It's the soft goods, the shoe retailing business is a challenging business, but when you focus on the people and you focus on added value, we have our value propositions, and so we measure everyone's foot with a double Brannock. The double Brannock device turned 100 years old this year in 2025. It was invented in 1825. We're still using it. Grandpa put them side by side and mounted them on a piece of wood. Now we have the double Brannock. Simplistic things like that, just to create that memorable experience, so that customer will leave and tell their mom, dad, brother, sister, coworkers, whoever, or when someone asks me for a referral, they say, "Here, I'm in town, Adam, I want to go for a great steak or a good restaurant. Can you make a recommendation?" Well, if I'm in an area where I can give a great recommendation, I do. But a lot of times, if I'm somewhere where I'm not going to just throw a recommendation out, and that's just how things are now. So in order for Beck Shoes to be branded as this amazing consumer experience, and we have to touch on all 5 senses, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about that with all of our retrofits and remodels. We've invested $6 million in the last 6 years with improving our stores and remodeling our stores. We have a construction team in-house of 5 people, and we're in Medford, Oregon right now in the Northwest, and we're remodeling a 3,500 square foot space. And when you come into a store as customers, if they're not wowed and we don't have the inventory for them, that's it. I mean, that was your chance. That was your opportunity.
I think, Liam, it boils down to all ships rise. So the more that we can have camaraderie and have relationship and have these conversations with a lot of the other retailers across the nation, the better we're all going to be, the better the independent channel is going to be. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that consumers understand and see the value in getting in their car and driving to your store. So if there's other sit and fits and other retailers that are doing it well, good. Fantastic. That's awesome. Even if they are, to Adam's point, somewhat of a similar trade area, it just makes all of us more valid and all of us more important to that consumer. And it's going to help all of us. And again, it's going to help all of us rise.
Means the consumer wins, right? That's the end of it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Beck Shoes success is great, but when we hear other retailers and friends in the industry finding success and having success, that motivates us. It truly.
That's it.
Well, the customer experience is everything right now, isn't it? And there's probably never been a time where the impact of people is more important, in my opinion, either. And it seems like you're on the same page there with your teams, that our colleagues, our retail expansion is not just what the next retail store is down the road. You're also competing with and aligning with other websites and where the brands itself are sort of sitting. So the experience in store, like the double branding idea is a wonderful idea, isn't it? Doesn't that just bring that fifth generation all the way through to today? Probably that's my question for you both, is you've got this 5-generation business that you've got, and you're obviously relying a lot on that history, but also bringing your people up to speed. But what's some of that messaging that maybe to the customer front, maybe the first or the second generation would have been saying to their customers? What's that now? Is there anything that you're bringing from that original generation into today? And I suppose part 2 to that question is, where are you taking Beck Shoes into the future? Is there a way that you're going to keep your history going into the future?
Yeah, so to cover the other 2 value propositions, the second one is obviously the current technology. We work with the Schwartz brothers from Atrex, and so we also, not only the double brand, but we also scan the feet. And Joel and I kind of dubbed this as the old school versus the new school.
Yeah.
And so it's bringing that heritage and that past of our history. And again, it's quick toe measurements. It's a foot scan. And then lastly, the last value propositions, which again, going back to things we learned from our grandfathers, the fitting aids, pun pads, road grips, foam taps.
Yeah.
We call them tricks of the trade. We don't charge the consumers for that. And even if the consumer wants to, they have we give them a shoe show. We bring out a collection, and we're going to bring out all the categories, and we're going to have a little mini shoe show for the consumers. Even if they don't make a purchase, but they have issues where they have, I have these, shoes that I didn't purchase from you, and they slip in the heel. We'll give them tongue pads, we'll give them heel grips, we'll give them foam taps to take home with them, because again, that's our opportunity to create that, that memorable experience from Beck Shoes. And a lot of times they're going to come back and say, hey, we've had so many success stories of consumers coming back saying, you gave me these little taps and little fun things that
saved all these shoes.
Yeah, saved. They had, a half a dozen pair in their closet that didn't fit properly, and now we helped them with that. That's a value add. And so it's not about just making the sale. It's not making that sale that day. It's about building that relationship with that consumer for a long term. And there's studies done on that, of how often your consumers shop with you, how many times do they come back during the course of the year, and how many dollars they spend over a lifetime of being a Beck Shoes consumer. And so we'll have a lot of those success stories, and we have thousands and thousands of customers that are walking and talking endorsements for us, and it feels really good. And that's a motivator for us, and that's why giving our people the autonomy to make a mistake in the moment, it's all worth it in the long run.
Well, I think it's interesting because those things that our grandfather and fathers that they did on the selling floor all the time, they weren't value adds at the time. That was just how you ran a business. That was just that was what a shoe store was. So that's how we're kind of keeping that continuity from what they did then. And it's now something that it's lost in a lot of different retail environments. So keeping that relationship with your consumer, coming alongside whatever it is that they're going through, whether it's the foot pain, and talking to them about plantar fasciitis and really helping them, meet the needs in that moment. But it's just amazing how much that relationship matters. And I think that's where it's, again, bringing that old school way of doing retail and just keeping it in our, and we'll never lose that, because that's why people, I think it's our value propositions and it's that relationship, and that's why they come to us in the first place. So
Be
very back.
but be very aware of that consumer's time. Be respectful of the time, because sometimes, our people on the sales floor, they'll kind of nerd out with this stuff, and you have to have that, the emotional intelligence. You have to be aware of your surroundings to understand that consumer might be losing interest, and so you have to be very aware of your surroundings, and that's a very important part. Quickly, to just touch on where we're going, we look at a percentage of popular. So if we sell 20,000 pairs of shoes in any given city or town, you take that number of units sold and you divide that by the population. It's a little bit more of a formula than that, but that's going to tell you what penetration you have in the marketplace, for that. And so that's a very important aspect of looking at internal growth. In terms of external growth, we have a big medical business too. We partner with a lot of doctors, podiatrists, orthopedic surgeons, general practitioners. And so we have a medical segment of our business. We also have an industrial occupational side of our business for the steel toes, safety toes, slip resistant, restaurant shoes. And then of course we have our huge athletic piece of the business, but we also have 20% on average with accessories. That's insoles, socks, care products, sundries, laces, handbags, that kind of stuff. So we break, where we're going is looking at all the different segments that we have of our business, where we're operating different types of shoe stores. When you go to a one specialty store, they're focusing on one specialty.
Yeah.
And then you go to a work store.
The mobile vans, the mobile shoe stores that you've got, but let us know a little bit about that. I'm very keen on that concept.
Yeah, so the mobile shoe stores, our grandfather basically started. It was like,
Pickup truck.
have a truck, where travel. Yeah, right? So we have a truck, we have shoes. Let's put the shoes in the truck. And obviously it's become a lot more sophisticated. And now we have these beautiful showrooms, air conditioned.
You can hold a little less than 1,000 pairs of shoes. But it's something where, we have a whole sales team that does industrial. They go to companies. These companies have subsidy programs for their safety footwear, for all their personal protection equipment. And we'll set up an appointment, and they'll say, we've got, 50 new hires that we've got, and they're going to go through their training on this day. And at the end of the training, we want you guys to be there, and we want to get everyone fitted for their safety shoes so they can start their job the next day.
Yeah, one of our largest accounts, we can't name names, but one of our largest accounts, like Julie said, during the onboarding process, it's mandatory before they start their job, they have to have a pair of specific safety shoes. And we have an exclusive contract with that company. We're out there multiple times a week, and it's servicing tens of thousands of pairs on an annual basis just for that one account. But we have over 900 active accounts right now.
Wow.
And that's definitely when you talk about, the continued growth or where the direction of our business. To Adam's point, the medical piece is a really big piece. We're getting, we have a gentleman that is his full-time job with Beck Shoes. He's essentially, going into podiatrists, orthotists, chiropractors, anything, creating these relationships, making sure that they understand that we have a very well-trained team, and we will come alongside them in their patient's journey and get them what they need. And then on the flip side of that, we've got an industrial sales team where they're coming to these companies that are just pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how to get their insurance lowered and deal with employees wearing the wrong shoes and for the environment that they're supposed to have. And so a lot of our tagline, it's like, we'll take you out of the shoe business. Like, you do your job, let us do ours, and we'll make sure that you have everything that's required. We'll manage these things for you. So it's a very unique thing there's some people across the country. There's some pretty big people that do this, but it's a specialized thing. And I'm very grateful our grandfather had the foresight to, get into this business, because it's something where, again, from a service perspective, a lot of our business is very needs driven. And so, it's nice to be able to come alongside these businesses or these doctors and be able to meet these needs for them.
It's a very curated customer base, because most of the people that they're seeing are your customers. So that's the great thing. I've got a question just to follow up, just in terms of one of the things in our business that we're seeing is, comfort shoes. We talk about comfort, and we talk about it being something that we're seeing we're trying to communicate to younger, because it seems to be there's a lot, the younger people are wanting comfort, but they don't necessarily want to be communicated to in the traditional ways of comfort shoes slash orthopedic, podiatry, etc. I just wonder if you're seeing that trend in your business where you're seeing more, you're seeing a comfort shoes being more appropriate for younger or more younger customers, wanting to get into that sort of category.
I think there's some comfort shoes that have become fashion shoes. And so that's very helpful. I would also say, again, with our industrial, like the workforce is getting younger and younger and younger. So we're able to expose a younger generation to what it does mean to support your body and to have good footwear and to have good arch support and to not fall into some of the things that maybe our parents did, talking about the fatigue that you face and the joint pain that could, be a potential down the road. So that's an exciting thing. Again, being on an industrial piece is getting to expose that younger generation. Some people would never come into our store unless we had, that kind of way of getting to them. So it's exciting to see that it's becoming more of a conversation.
And I think something that's being diagnosed now and people are a lot more aware is plantar fasciitis and then also diabetes. And so it's very unfortunate that, there's a percentage of the younger generation that has diabetes or type 2 diabetes or has plantar fasciitis from, again, health and wellness and CrossFit and all these different gyms. I mean, overusing, and just being diagnosed with plantar fasciitis, it's kind of guiding them into a Beck store where they probably wouldn't have come in otherwise. Yeah. But again, these doctors are referring them. And so that's giving us kind of an opportunity in those markets to talk about what we do and the importance of footwear.
Julia, you mentioned, about, comfort brands or moving into more sort of fashionable spaces. What other types of innovations do you look for in the brand partners that you work with and the brands that you carry in store?
I'd say from an innovation standpoint, more on the safety side of things, coming up with new technologies are always cool. I don't know that we necessarily look for new innovations when it comes to footwear. We have a very, again, needs-based business. So we aren't very fashion forward or looking for it's great when you find it and it's awesome when you're a part of it. But we definitely have a tried and true kind of Beck's consumer. I don't know. We're still trying. We're getting younger. We're having these conversations on the back end right now, just as far as our mix and kind of making sure that we're addressing some of these things. And we just had a conversation today with a vendor where it's we're not that retailer anymore. We are the new version of us. We're an evolved version of us. And so what does that look like? And how do we make sure that we're continuing to become the new Beck Shoes that, evolves with our clientele? So I don't know if there's anything specific. I would just say it's a little bit elusive, but it's conversations that I think that we have. So, but yeah, sorry not to.
Yeah, that each market is different. I mean, that's the thing is when we've spread out, over the last 5 years, we've acquired 14 different family-owned businesses. And so through those acquisitions.
In 14 different marketplaces.
Yeah, we're still learning, we're still growing. And so we're very aware of what's going on. We've picked up probably 20 new vendors over the last 5 years, but primarily due to the fact that we acquired a store in a market where we didn't do business with a certain vendor, and now we've raid that out to a handful of other stores. Yeah. So that's created some really nice internal growth for us. So we jokingly say we're bringing unsexy back. So I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but
I've got questions on this because this is a big passion point for Jeff and myself. We've currently just done our first acquisition ourselves, very similar to what you were mentioning, and it's a really interesting sort of concept, isn't it? Because you get into it, and when you think that you know it all about your market, you go and acquire another business and you learn 5 or 6 things, and then you're starting to think, well, now how do I get that concept into the other 5 stores? So my question, you got 26 stores, and I think you just mentioned 13 of those are acquisitions. How do you balance your for this isolated question, how do you balance your product ranges across your 26? So obviously you've got different markets in those areas. How do you evolve your products, and how do you separate your products and give everyone the right product mix for their market?
very, very thoughtfully and carefully.
Yeah. Well, no, we believe in the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rule, 20% of your SKUs will do 80% of your top line revenue. And so it's the 80-20 rule. I've tried to prove that wrong over the years, and I fail every single time. Personally, professionally, we come back to, we just started, we opened up a new warehouse, and it houses 22,000 pair of shoes. And I'm going to tell you right now, the shoes that are warehoused in that warehouse are the bulb and that butter, and it's weekly, twice a week replenishments in some stores. And so you just, again, it goes back to bringing Unsexy back. It might be something that's not exciting, but it's turning and it's moving, and you're making the sales. And here's the philosophy for us. We don't want our salespeople to have to work hard for the very first pair. You shouldn't have to work hard for the first pair. The first pair is a layup. That's a layup. You get the first pair. If you have a great business, we've invested millions of dollars into our remodels. We have staff that are fully engaged. They smile, they make jokes, they're happy to be there, they're part of the Beck's family.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to work hard for that first pair. We have all these other products that they're bringing out as part of a collection. And then the second and the third pair and the inserts and the socks and the care products, that's all going to happen organically. But again, just stay true to the 80-20 rule. And like I said, I tried to prove it wrong for many years, and I feel it's just going to be right.
But, that other 20%, it's very much community driven. It's very much like where that specific location is. You've got one store that has just walls and walls and walls of one vendor, and another store that just doesn't sell it at all. And that's okay. So, again, just focusing in on the core, making sure that your team has the ammunition to react to that first need of the customer, and then going from there.
We also have a merch plan, and we use the 80-20 rule in the merch plan. So again, those shoes that are the 20% SKUs, we like to take our stores, and we're kind of going down this new exploration of creating a more premium feel where all those 80-20 shoes are displayed in pairs. So you have a pair of shoes on display, and then you have the color pops that are around it. So you have the exciting color pops, and you can really tell a story. And then our team knows that everything that's displayed in pairs is going to be that stuff that's backed up in the warehouse. That's going to be the stuff that we're filling into constantly. And so through that 80-20 merch plan, that's going to allow us to, again, train and guide our sales team to be able to, know where to go for that first pair.
That's an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Having that visual and creating that premium experience is really important, because we've definitely over-skewed in the past, and trying to figure out what that store was to that community, you get a little bit robust in your selection. So I think that being able to kind of like hone in and really make it look premium is definitely part of the direction that we're going for the future.
Amazing, because as you know, every store has a team member that has a preference of a style or a brand. So we've got our 6 stores, and there's one brand that will go really, really well in one store and not so well in another. Another store has so by having that sort of 20-80 rule on the concept, and even on your merch plan, keeps that consistency across that line, doesn't it?
No, exactly.
When you're willing to go out and do some niches here and there for some stores, and if there's a certain individual that's very passionate about it, it's not a conversation we're not willing to have. Because if a team member gets behind it and they really believe in it, that's just added volume for the store.
So with your acquisitions, 14 stores, obviously each store, there'll be all those stores will have their own special brand. Some of them you may not have, or whatever. So you've got a customer base in that store of something that's completely foreign to, say, Beck Shoes, or I don't know how much that would be the case, but certainly, how do you wean a customer base off a brand that's been a favourite in that store if you really feel that you've got it covered in something that you're doing already?
Yeah, that's a case-by-case basis. We obviously have partnerships with our vendors, and so we're going to do everything we can to build a business and steer the business in the direction that we want to go, based on maintained margin, based on relationships, based on the vendors that we want to grow with. But at the end of the day, you can only fight that so much. And so there's guardrails put in place. And as long as there's an inventory turn, that's appropriate for that, and, from a cash flow standpoint, if it makes sense, it might not be the maintained margin, you might not have the relationship yet with that vendor built. that vendor that we're doing business with. But, it's case by case basis. And, you don't want to walk away from it. And I'm doing my best not to name any vendors right now because I want to say vendors, but I'm not going to. But, we've had all these situations where we walked away after acquiring, so we walked away from some big vendors, and it stung us. And
we learned a lot. We learned a lot over the course of our acquisitions, and I think that there was a mindset going into them as far we're going to convert this to a Beck Shoes, and it's going to be our consumer, and they're going to shop our vendors, and it was much more like in the box. And I think as time went on, to Adam's point, we recognized that we walked away from some opportunities. So we got a little bit more thoughtful and made the decision to investigate some of the vendors that we at one point would probably say thanks but no thanks.
We have to have the mindset of an IV drip.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't go in there and be everything to everybody, but you got to be a nice, slow, gradual, consistent IV drip.
I know it like clay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's turn our attention a little bit to marketing, because that's obviously a big change in every part of our business. And we're obviously a complete transition to digital marketing is something that's obviously happening in our markets, etc. We're very little print. In fact, catalogs are something that in some places are dropping away. But I'm interested to hear, where you guys are at with marketing and, with, how you're attracting maybe new customers, etc. from that perspective.
We're very unconventional. I'm going to start with that statement. We're very unconventional. You really got to look at each market. I feel like digital is oversaturated. We also do a lot of digital, but it's very oversaturated. So, again, based on the store, based on the market, we have 8 markets where newspaper is very viable.
Still meaningful.
It's still very viable. And so being aggressive with certain markets based on the age, the demographic, who you're targeting, again, narrowing your numbers and narrowing who you're trying to target, and then taking those marketing programs, and again, hit the roads, hit the streets, the grassroots marketing. We talk about that as owner-operators, independent owner-operators. Grassroots marketing and creating word-of-mouth advertising, through that grassroots, that is no better, really. You can pump tons of money into TV and radio and digital and whatever other direction you want to go. But if you're out there doing a community event, the locals pages, the local Facebook's pages, any kind of locals group, and then go in there and don't go in there with the intention of selling shoes. Go in there with the long play. The long play is, what are you going to do to connect with that community? And they're doing better and better at that. I'm not going to say that we're pros at it by any means, but we aspire to connect with the community, not to just sell them shoes, but to truly be part of the community and share our 105-year-old, family history. And guess what? Organically, we're going to sell them shoes. Organically, they're going to want to know more about Beck Shoes. But
it's a byproduct of the relationship that you're building. And that's something that we tell all of our sales team. It's every person that walks in the door, you're connecting with them, you're creating a human connection. And I think whether it's in the store or at one of these events, ultimately, people do business with people they like. So if you connect with someone and you're like, I'm so curious now, this person that's so amazing and bubbly and cool, I want to go find out where they work, because obviously they're happy there, whatever that is. And the same on the selling floor. It's if you connect with that person and people don't feel like you're trying to sell them something, they're going to just want to hang out and want to spend time and want to support you.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is the marketing funds that you get from traditional marketing funds that you get from a vendor, because they want you to quantify the dollars spent. They want you to show all these metrics.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just not that easy. It doesn't convert like that. And so when I say non-conventional, we're going out there, we're building relationships, we're focusing on the long play, not the short play. And again, that's really hard to co-op, and that's really hard. We have vendor partners that know Joe and I, and we've built a trust. And we say, look, at the end of the day, did we buy more shoes from you than we did last year? And I said, that's the results that you need. Who cares if I show you this digital plan and all of a sudden you get this many click-throughs and the email conversion rate and all these numbers and metrics, this analysis paralysis, and it's like, oh, you guys had a 47% or 52% click-through rate. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, we didn't buy as many shoes as we did last year, so therefore we failed.
And that's the partnership of as retailers and in partnership with our vendors, making sure that there is that clear line of communication. And I think we're again having a conversation today about what are the expectations of each other. and make sure that that's clear from day one. And then from a marketing perspective, how do you kind of come alongside each other? And then again, how do you build that trust and ensure that you know that we're building our brand, we're building your brand when people come into our store. And it's, yeah, so very unconventional, but it's working for us and we're growing it.
So I would just, again, I'm gonna hold this up to the screen, but this is a very unconventional marketing piece going out to our industrial customers. I'll read it to you first and then I'll bring it up to you. So it says let Beck's Shoemobile service take the stress out of your safety shoe program. And right here you can see it's a little squish truck. So it's a Beck Shoes truck. It's a little squishy truck. And so that we nail that out.
That's cool.
We'll nail that out. All of our burns on the back.
That's brilliant.
It's just one of our touches. This is one of our industrial touches. So our lead generating, again, let us take the stress out of this program. You have these safety managers and safety directors in this segment of our business that have 150 people that work for them. They just had someone that had a trip and fall, and all of a sudden their HR department's down their back saying,
"Yeah, they handle this.
This just cost us $27,000 for this trip and fall because of improper footwear." So they got one of these from us a month ago. Guess who's calling us?
Yeah, amazing.
Set up a $40,000 account.
I mean, it's a really interesting metric that you kind of think through, and there's all about, the quantifiable results, but there's also, qualifiable as well. And you've got to get that mixture of that because, you don't know what that's going to capture. And I agree wholeheartedly that, you can't overanalyze these or judge success on your click through or whatever, because, you if you're engaging with consumers, with your consumers and customers in a different way, there's no way to get that other than have them come through the door. Hey, I got your flyer in the mail, or hey, I saw you at this community event. Like that's just an amazing way, and that's the tail of the tape, really.
Those numbers, if all that marketing that you're doing, Adam, the digital marketers would include that in ROAS.
I feel like we could have a whole podcast on marketing ideas, but a passion of mine, passion of yours. But again, having this, we have a content, a box. This is a box that has all kinds of cool little gizmos and gadgets and 50% off coupons. We're going out to the doctor community. So again, I don't want to botch this, but plantar fasciitis, we got a little plantar fasciitis stretching guide. And it has, a little roller here. It has a features plantar fasciitis sock. Prescription pads. It's got the fitting aids like I talked about. So the phone taps and heel grips, and it has little directions in there. So added value. So we're sending this out to, obviously it's very focused because by the time we put these boxes together, they're all custom Beck shoes and we have the postage, it's costing us $40 per box. But again, these are great relationships. And this is tried and true. This stuff works. But again, try to have a vendor partner, try to explain this to them and get co-op funds for it. Good luck.
Yeah. No, it's a very look. I'm an advocate. I mean, what you're talking about is really the untapped ability for those experts with their customers or patients to refer to you, and that's really they are customers that need your product. Almost 100% of them, and it's such an important. We have a similar type business here, slightly different in that. But we deal with 2,000 practitioners in terms of some of them will prescribe a shoe, but most of them will refer to one of our partners or our own stores. That's the idea. But again, it's the same basis, is that those are just absolute people that need the product and need to be told where to go. So it's a very important aspect. I've got a question in terms of your staff. How do you teach them, or what's the sort of process of teaching them what's the right shoe to recommend to a customer? That's probably one of the biggest questions where you delegate to a staff member and you rely on them helping the staff through the journey. So how do you go about that?
Well, I think first and foremost, when you do receive new product into the store, it's so imperative to get that footwear on your team, on your team's feet. So have them try the shoes on.
Yeah.
Have them try the shoes on. What fits wide in the toe box? What's shallow? What has more depth? How's the heel counter? Some of these basic fitting characteristics, it's so important as a salesperson, as someone on the sales floor getting this great consumer experience. I'm going to look at a foot. I could probably guess it within a half size. I can look at the width. I can look at how, the depth of the foot. I can look at the heel if it's a narrow heel. And then once you do this, for a while, then we kind of pick that up. But I think it's that simple sometimes is you just have to look at the foot. Again, you're measuring the foot, you're scanning the feet, but really that's retail theater. That's retail theater. That's not going to create an ultimate fit. The ultimate fit comes down to saying, you know what, this came in 2 weeks ago. I tried it on. I know exactly how my foot fits. I know exactly that this is going to fit, this way based on my foot. And I'm going to tell the consumer, hey, I tried these on last week.
As far as like the features and the benefits to those features, we have something we call it the Grid, which is our kind of intranet site. So that's all things Beck Shoes. All of our team goes on there on a daily basis to get information and to engage with our business. On there, you can find training videos. We actually encourage a lot of our vendor reps to film short, like 90 to 3 minute, probably actually 90 seconds to 2 minute videos.
On there, it says here would be 30 to 90 seconds, because otherwise it's like watching paint dry.
You would be amazed how, So, but we really encourage, especially when it comes to the new launch of a shoe or it has a new technology, if there's something that we really want our team to know about a product that we're looking at, selling, that's a great tool. Videos and little blurbs on how they can, fit the consumers and make sure that they know what exactly this does or how they can use this for this ailment or this pain or whatever it is. That's been an incredible tool. Yeah. And we do like a points-based learning where they can watch videos and earn points and then get like free products or things like that. So trying to make it to where there's the benefit to watching these training videos. It's not just going to educate you and make you better at your job and give you confidence, which who wouldn't want to do it for those reasons alone. We'll also bribe you with swag. So yay.
It's essentially 3.5 or Miyagi. It's just an internal platform.
Yeah.
That's what it is, but it's way better than both of those.
Yeah.
And because it's personalized touch, and the bloopers are the best part, because you're watching people attempt to, we have this one guy calls it's just so awkward. He didn't know what to do with his hands. So his hands are always just.
So you call him a teapot because he's always out. But our team loves it.
Yeah, the following.
He's just like a normal dude who's like getting in front of the camera and giving them this amazing information. And so we challenge a lot of our leadership and a lot of our middle management to be the ones that film some of these videos because they're known. And it's like, it's your friend. It's your friends just talking to you, telling you about the new cool thing in the business, and it's going to help you.
When someone's voice is quivery and they're shaking and they're sweating, the staff is going, oh my gosh, they're trying. What are they talking about? And then at first that information gets received.
Yeah.
And it's such valuable.
Barriers come down.
Valuable information coming across from a peer, attempting to communicate with our Beck's Globe, as we call it, the Beck's Globe. Yeah. So our 26 store is the Beck's Globe.
Amazing.
Where are you guys in the future? Are you expanding out a little bit more? Are you going over more on the other side of the states there? Is there expansion plans for you guys?
Yeah, so we're Kansas West right now. We had operation in Kansas, more industrial based. So in terms of expansion right now, it's really about internal expansion. It's about process. It's about efficiencies within this process. We are, just to be very transparent, because we like to be transparent, but we're going through some, delayed growing pains. Nothing we can't handle. But again, just, some little modifications and tweaks to our business model. We're very confident with, what the future lies. I think that, the type of retailer that we are, the type of experience that we provide to the average guest that walks through our door, there's great value in that. And so I think that, we've been acquiring 4 to 5 acquisitions a year. I think we're a little bit tired. I know I'm tired. I want to put our into the business. I think the internal expansion piece of it sounds like almost like a vacation.
We just have an incredible amount of opportunity within our business right now. And so it would be irresponsible of us not to take advantage of what's in front of us right now, because the amount of growth that we can have without increasing our door count at all is pretty exciting.
But yeah, Jay can attest to that. I've said this many times about internal expansion. In fact, I've said it for 3 years straight. And
every Q1, Adam's like, no stores this year. It's all about internal expansion. We're just going to stay where we are. We're going to get really good. And then opportunity goes, boop, and so bad.
I think
new store opportunity. And we're like, yeah.
The plan's the plan until it's not.
I would say that for expansion plans, so Jay and I talked about doing a little larger format, little larger square footage, going into a A-plus location, paying no rents, being aware that we don't want to exceed 10% in occupancy cost. Last year, our occupancy company average was 7.77, and that included our warehouse and distribution center. So those are best that I'm a numerology guy, so 777. It means something, but anyways, yeah. So I think that doing one superstore a year and focusing on top line revenue growth and not the store count. And I don't think it was always the store count, but I mean, look, we all have egos, whether we want to admit it or not. And when you see someone else opening up shoe stores and you say, oh, they're up to 23 doors, or they're at 47, or whatever the case may be. I mean, that is a little bit of driving factor. I'm a competitor.
Well, I also think there's a confidence level in the model that we have. So, our standard store size in the communities that we've kind of decided to go in, we coined the phrase at one point in time, like every small town needs a Beck Shoes. So there was a thought process behind our growth decisions at one point in time, but now it's just shifted a little bit. We do feel like we're leaning more into being a premium type of retail experience, and we feel like we're leaning more into the other aspects of the business. We're not just this occupational shoe store that our fathers once ran. We are definitely an evolution of what we once were, and I feel like there is a consumer out there that is of a higher end that would absolutely love to be in our stores, and we need to be somewhere where they shop.
Well, I think certain markets, San Francisco, we opened up a store in San Francisco and we found some great success. And you asked me 5 years ago, will you have had a store in San Francisco? I would say absolutely not. And so, but through that experience,
it was definitely, it was very eye-opening.
Having those customers walk in and get, experience Beck Shoes, going, oh, live here. Do you have a Beck Shoes? Yeah, we have a Beck Shoes. That's, 20 minutes away from where you live. So you getting that tourism, getting that people that come in and get introduced, to Beck Shoes, and then, oh my gosh, you have one in my hometown, and so that's kind of fun.
I think when you say what you said before, something that I think in business in general, I mean, if you've got a growth mentality, there's a time and a phase where you have to have a lot of balls in the air. And there's also an important time and a phase where you have to concentrate on what you've done, the disruption you've done to the business, and then start to smooth it out and make it work.
Sure.
And so we've had a lot of balls in the air ourselves in the last year, but now we're into the same phase where we've got to make everything work. We've got to make our retail work and our US operation work and stuff like that. It's the same thing. You can't often do both. Sometimes you have to do get a lot of stuff going, and then you concentrate on the business.
Yeah. And I think that's where we're at. In the beginning of 2019, we were at 9 stores, and then over the course, we grew by 6 stores just in the year of 2020. So, this exponential and the speed in which we have just grown our business, what worked for 9 doesn't work for 26. And we all know this. And we've had some points in time over the last 5 years where we've recalibrated and reset guardrails. But if you're not continually doing that as your business evolves, then eventually the wheels are going to fall off. You got to continue the maintenance. So I think, we see right now, we have, again, a really amazing opportunity to have that maintenance, and we'll see if we can keep Adam in check for the year.
and kind of the North Star for me would be doing an analysis on 4-wall P&L. So every month we look at each individual unit, separate P&L, and so we look at the 4-wall. So for the month of January is a very tough month for us historically. And of the 26 stores and the 4 trucks, we look at 30 units. Of the 30 units, 28 were in the black. And so, and one of which we own the real estate, so the mortgage is high, and so that's to be expected. So if we kind of factor that out to reasonable occupancy, it would have been 29 out of 30. So, with being 28 stores in the black in a month like January, that makes us feel, we feel good, and we feel like we're positioned in a good place.
I mean, one thing, you just as a small bit of humour, you mentioned 7.7%. We would love, what are we, 20%?
Yes, 20.
He's really good at negotiating leases, so I'll farm him out for you.
It brings me great joy in my life. I love to negotiate the deals, and that's a whole separate podcast for another time.
Yeah, I love Adam's favorite groups is landlords. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
How many department stores or shopping centres vis-a-vis strip shops do you have, just out of interest?
Oh, let's see. At the downtown locations, it was at 26 doors. I would say 4 of them were downtown, 4 of them are mall based, so 26 minus 8, and those are the strip centers.
And then we have 2 freestanding.
Yeah, two freestanding buildings. And we were able to buy some real estate in the last 5 years too. So 3 of the stores we own the real estate. So that was obviously a long-term goal. And our fathers and our grandfather, they never had that opportunity because they were putting in all that working capital into the business and through transitional phases. And so they never had that opportunity. So with some of these acquisitions, we were able to, have some of these owners carry some of the notes. And we've been very fortunate to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's start winding up. Maybe we'll just finish off with, maybe I'll just say, Liam, final question, and Dan, and then we'll sort of finish up. So, Liam?
No, I don't, I've got a final question. I've just got more of a comment, and I think there's such a lesson that I've learned tonight, and well, I've always sort of had the philosophy of it, but this is just really a great case in point of what you guys have done at Beck's, of a people first culture, which really translates into the ultimate result for the consumer. And I think that's a lesson for any business, is to think about the people first. And part of the ethos, and you and I have spoken about this, Jeff, of a lot of brands will say, it's always about the product. The product is king. The product is king. It's like the product's exceedingly important, but I rate the people part of it just as importantly. And I think this has been a wonderful eye opener for me, just to get these insights into your culture, because that is really reflective of the results you've got, and ultimately the consumer's winning, which is helping you guys build your business, being able to help more consumers. So it's been wonderful.
So too, I mean, it was such a buzzword for such a long time, but at one point in time, Adam went and saw, it was Bob Infantino and Gary Champion at an industry event, and they were talking about culture when they were at like the Rockport days and the Clark's days and all these things. And regardless of your efforts, your culture exists. So one way or the other, right? So at that point in time, when he heard that speech, it was this really big shift, and recognizing that no matter what happens, it's going to be this living, breathing thing. So we can either just ignore it, or we can pour ourselves into it, and we can guide it and nurture it and steer it. And the results have absolutely shown what that will do if you pour into your culture and make sure your people feel your passion, understand they're a part of a team, create that, you give them the transparency, it builds the trust. I mean, it's just like incredible.
I had to look in the mirror. I had to truly look in the mirror at that point, and that was a pivotal point for my leadership style. And I've always been a goal-driven, results-driven individual, but when it came to that people-first mentality and that overall culture, I was results driven in my leadership, and it was a different era of Beck Shoes. It was a different time, and I think that having those 2 individuals speak at a USRA event, which was just an event here in the States, but it was game changing for me. It was game changing for my leadership style,
and ultimately game changing for our business. I didn't have the opportunity to be there, but when he came back from that event, he was just like, this is what we got to do. And I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah. And I mean, look, part of everyone's, cultural missions and pillars of their business, people's always going to be part of it. But, for most companies, whether it be, retail or brands or whatever it might be, they're just words on a wall. But I think you guys are a case in point of, walking the walk and talking the talk.
100%.
Adam, sorry, Dan.
Generation 6, is it coming? $2 an hour? Anyone being paid $2?
Definitely not work for $2 an hour. I know my kids would. No way.
I'm 34 years old. My daughter's 7. And so I aspire to have my baby. So I'm engaged to be married November 1st of this year.
Hey man, congratulations.
Yeah. It was not the plan. I unfortunately went through a divorce, but everything happens for a reason. So I'm going to have my babies. So I'll be working until about 85 until the next generation comes. So.
My boys are 10 and 13, and right now my 10-year-old said, Mom, I'm either going to be a professional soccer player, well, actually, he calls it football in our house, he loves the EuroLeague, or a YouTuber, and if those don't work out, then I'll come work for Beck Shoes.
Well, my 12-year-old walked into my store the other day and said, so, have we made budget today yet? so our generation 2's coming through. So it was the proudest moment I had of my boy. So Yeah, no, this is a
He's
pinch me
learning.
moment.
He's
Yeah, he's
learning.
learning.
All right, that's great.
That is fantastic. I love
Great
it.
to meet you guys.
No, fantastic. Well, thank you. Firstly, what I want to say is your podcast room looks amazing, and it's motivated us to renovate a little bit. So thank you. It's a really good look that you've got. Thank you so much at such short notice for having having this discussion. Incredible. I mean, so many great bits of inspiration and information from the discussion. And that's the thing about two different organisations getting together and then learning from each other. Everyone has different ideas, but the combination, it makes us all very powerful and effective. So we look forward to further discussions, and certainly, I mean, I know Dan and myself would love to come and visit your stores at some point. And likewise, come across to Australia, we'd love to host you. And obviously, you're going to spend time with Liam and all that in the future. So thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
A little plug for our podcast. It hasn't, we have the podcast studio, but we don't have the podcast launched as of yet. So we're working with some consulting groups, but stay tuned for the BS podcast. And the BS podcast does not stand for Beck Shoes.
So much how our room has inspired you. You've inspired us. I think we definitely need to get our stuff together, and this was really fun. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Thank you for joining us on the Comfort Walk and Talk by the Comfort Co. If you like this episode and you got something out of it, we would love your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite channels and never miss a step on your journey to comfort.
Please follow us for more insights and updates on the Comfort Co social media channels. Until the next episode, see you later.